Hey Fantasy fans, it's Dan here with Treebeer Book Reviews, and today I'm going to be reviewing an interesting book. It's a self-published book by Anonymous, and that is Gurzel. Let's get into it. Hey guys, welcome back. So I'm just going to be doing a spoiler-free review today of Gurzel. It's book 1 of the Wars of Wrath by Anonymous. So again, just going to go over the basic plot, some of the things I liked, some of the things I didn't like, because I'm going to do like a mixture, like a good and then a bad, good and a bad, just to kind of, lay out some of the things that are going on in this book. So let me first talk about what the book is about. So the book it's really a historical fiction set after, about a century set after the fall of Rome. And it bounces back between Britain, like during the Saxon invasion of Britain, and then in northern Africa. So it's a very interesting book. So you're following the two main protagonists are George Bertilax, or the Black Knight. The second main character is Sabra. She is the daughter of King Alba, who is the king of Saline, and she is pretty much in exile, but like it's a forced exile. Her father removed her so she can no longer be harmed by Gurzel or attacked by Gurzel, because Gurzel really wants her. So Gurzel is the horned god. He is a dragon in this book. Him and his sycophants have taken over the kingdom of Saline under Alba, and he's pretty much just a puppet in charge under Gurzel. So the thing where this book starts off, with Hamilcar Barca, so Hannibal Barca's father, and it really talks about how Hamilcar is going back on this deal, reneging on this deal with Gurzel, and which causes the fall of Carthage and eventually Rome beating Carthage, and then there's overtones of that Rome will eventually fall, which we know Rome falls in the 4th century. And so then it goes to our main storyline, where you're following the POVs of George in England and Sabra in northern Africa, and they're tied together somehow through the influence of this god Gurzel. So again, it's a historical fiction with some fantasy overtones. And I'm going to talk about something, like I said, I'm going to mix the good and the bad here and what I like. So we'll start on a good point. So what was one of the first things is the dragon. I do like Gurzel. Gurzel is a good dragon. You see he's very menacing. He is definitely evil. He's using humans for his own gain. Sees humans as puppets and pawns. Doesn't care about humans really. Cares about his own means. He's a dragon. Does all these dragony things. I do wish we had a little bit more of Gurzel. See more of Gurzel doing things. It's really Gurzel kind of sending his sycophants and his followers out to do his bidding. We do get a little bit of action from Gurzel in the end of the book, but generally I did like Gurzel. I thought he was very menacing. He was a scary dragon. I would have liked a little bit more Gurzel. So let's get into some of the things I didn't like. One of the big things that really pulled me out of the story was the exposition. So I'm a very character-driven reader, and there's a lot of POVs that are going on in this book where you have POVs from Alba, Hamilcar Barca as your prologue. You have Sabra, George Bertilac, Merlin. So there's a lot of POVs going on, and you don't really have long enough with the characters you want to be with to start to enjoy them a little bit more. So I really like George. George was probably my favorite POV of the entire book. His storyline was the most gripping, but I just wanted more of him, and I didn't get that chance to be attached to him. And maybe that's just like a book 1 issue where it's book 1, he's doing a lot of setup, and the same with Sabra. Like, I really like Sabra, but I wanted more to get more attached to them as a reader, for me at least. And one of the things I think was an issue with the characters and my enjoyment with them is the characters are really used as plot devices, or they're used, sorry, not as plot devices, but they're used as devices for exposition. This book is there's a lot of heavy exposition in this book, and I get it because it's a historical fiction, and it's really heavy on the exposition, and I found it really pulled me out of the story a lot. And it might pull me out of the story more than others, because I have a background in ancient history. So a lot of the stuff I've kind of heard before and read before, maybe a long time ago. I've been a little rusty. So I'm gonna segue this into another thing I like, though, is the author really knows his history. He really he's really knowledgeable. He really puts his knowledge on show in this book. So I do really appreciate the amount of research and the amount of thought that went into tying all these elements together. He did a really good job, mixing the history and the fantasy and trying to make a cohesive story. Not everything worked. Some things did miss for me, like maybe they were a little bit ambitious at times, trying to tie in too many things, like with the Arthurian legend, the Tristan and Isolde, and tying with the Saxon invasion, and then the other kind of like barbarian invasions, like in Northern Africa or like in some of the cities around Northern Africa. So it's good. His knowledge of history is great. I will commend him on that, and I do appreciate what he's trying to achieve in this book. Again, I think it's just a book one problem where he's trying to set a lot of things up, and some of this stuff is not going to pay off till a little bit later. So yeah, really commend him on his history knowledge. Great job there. So then another thing I do want to mention that I did not care for is some of the dialogue. Some of the dialogue it really felt out of place or like out of time. It was like very anachronistic sometimes, where there was a lot of slang, and it would pull me out of the story a bit, where they wouldn't typically talk like this. There was a lot of modern slang, and I know he's addressed this issue, so this is something that's going to be changed. And this is something you develop as a writer, where the dialogue needs to be a bit more, especially with historical fiction, like need to be representative of the time and a little less anachronism. But other than that, it was fairly good. The dialogue was okay. Some of it, again, I still felt like it didn't really tell me too much about the characters, or the characters still felt a little bit hollow in some points with the dialogue, and they just some of the dialogue was very random too, where it felt a little forced, some of the dialogue. But other than that, very good. So the next good, or the last good I want to talk about, is the setting. He does a really good job in describing the setting, describing where we are, and linking these worlds together. Like I felt like when I was reading about Roman Britain, I'm like, oh yeah, like this feels like Roman Britain, or Saxon invasion Britain, or after the fall of Rome in Britain, and then the Saxon invasion. So he did a really good job of setting the scene and describing those. So like when I was in like with George in England, it felt gloomy and dreary and a little ominous and like misty. So he did a really good job there. And then when you were with Sabra, you felt like you were in Northern Africa. So it was hot, and the type of animals that she was like chasing and stuff like that. Like you felt like the setting felt really good, especially when he was describing like Saline and like Alba City. I think he did a really good job there. So I guess the last thing I want to talk about is just overall polish of the book. There's some grammatical errors, there's some like spelling errors. That's really, really, really minor for me. But the biggest thing of a negative for me was there was a very loose plot. Like the plot, you really follow these two plot lines, of one in England, one in Northern Africa. They do eventually tie together through. I'm not going to explain the means, but they tie together through Gurzel. And I think the plot resolution was kind of a little weak in the end for this book. Again, it's probably going to be explored more in the later books in the series. But other than that, I think it was good. Like the plots for the two main characters I cared about were good. They could have done a little bit more. And I think what really brought the plot down was adding all these extra POV characters in that didn't really need to be there, or that were really just kind of done for exposition, or to set the scene for why certain things were happening, where I think you could have just used a secondary character rather than making them a full POV. So other than that, guys, let's kind of get to my rating of Gurzel and what my overall ranking is. So Gurzel, I'm going to give it C tier. It's it's a good book. I would recommend you buy it on ebook. You can buy it on ebook. There will be a link to Amazon below where you can purchase the book on ebook. Yeah, safe to buy on ebook. Can buy an ebook. Again, I'm interested in reading the second book. I'd definitely pick it up if Iononymous was gracious enough to send me the ARC. So this is actually a pretty good first entry for an author. Like I think there's things obviously to improve, and nobody writes like an absolute banger out of the gate, and there's a lot. I can see there's a lot of growth that this author can do, and historical fiction again is not typically my jam. So giving this a try was actually a nice kind of take for me. Like I enjoyed reading it. It was actually a good breath of fresh air with the books I was reading, because I read a lot of heavy sci-fi in the month of February when I read this book. So it was good to have that little that difference, and it was nice. So it made it stand out. Again, I did have some issues with the book, but other than that, Gurzel was good, guys. I recommend it. Pick it up on ebook. So that's my review for Gurzel, guys. I hope we'll see you next time. Cheers.